They say the truth will always come to light. But in the small town of Millbrook, Pennsylvania, the truth was buried so deep that it took a complete stranger to dig it up. And when she finally exposed what the entire community had been hiding for 15 years, the revelation would destroy everything they thought they knew about their neighbors, their leaders, and themselves. This tragedy came as a shock to this usually quiet community. Millbrook, Pennsylvania. Population 2,847. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone. Where high school football games are the highlight of Friday nights. Where the biggest crime is usually someone's dog getting loose. It was the perfect American small town. Until March 15, 2008. That's when 17-year-old Jessica Manning went missing. Pretty. Popular. Honor roll student. Star of the school drama club. Homecoming queen. College-bound with a full scholarship to Penn State. Jessica had everything going for her. And then she vanished. March 14, 2008. A Friday night. Jessica had been at Tommy's Diner with her best friend, Carla Thompson. They'd shared a milkshake. Talked about prom. Made plans for the weekend. Around 10:30 p.m., Jessica said goodbye to Carla outside the diner. "See you tomorrow," were her last words to anyone in Millbrook. Jessica walked the 6 blocks home alone. She never made it. By morning, her parents called the police. By noon, the entire town was searching. They found her car parked perfectly in her family's driveway. Her purse inside, untouched. House keys still in her coat pocket. But no Jessica. It was as if she'd vanished into thin air just steps from her front door. Chief of Police Robert "Bobby" Walsh had been protecting Millbrook for 23 years. "I've never seen anything like this," he told reporters. "Jessica is a good kid. She doesn't run off. Something happened to her." But what? The investigation seemed thorough. Door-to-door interviews. Search parties combing the woods. State police brought in tracking dogs. Nothing. No witnesses. No leads. No trace of Jessica Manning. After 6 months, the case went cold. The town tried to move on. A memorial scholarship was established in Jessica's name. Her parents moved to Florida, unable to bear the memories. Life in Millbrook returned to normal. But 15 years later, a stranger would prove that nothing about Jessica's disappearance was normal. Nothing was what it seemed. And the entire town had been lying. August 2023. 15 years after Jessica vanished. Dr. Elena Vasquez, an investigative journalist from Chicago, drove into Millbrook researching a book about cold cases in small-town America. She'd never heard of Jessica Manning. She'd never been to Pennsylvania. She had no connection to Millbrook whatsoever. She was just looking for a story. What she found would change everything. Dr. Vasquez checked into the Millbrook Motor Lodge and began her research at the local library. She wanted to understand the town's history, its people, its culture. That's when she stumbled across Jessica's case. "Missing teen, no leads, case cold for 15 years," she noted in her journal. Perfect example of small-town mystery. But as Dr. Vasquez dug deeper, something didn't feel right. The newspaper coverage was too clean. Too neat. The police reports seemed incomplete. The witness statements were almost identical. Like everyone had rehearsed the same story. Dr. Vasquez decided to interview longtime residents about Jessica's disappearance. She started with Margaret Stevens, who owned the flower shop across from Tommy's Diner. "Oh, poor Jessica," Margaret said, shaking her head. "Such a tragedy. She was walking home alone that night. We told her parents she shouldn't walk alone after dark." But then Dr. Vasquez spoke to Harold Bennett, who ran the hardware store. "Jessica always walked home," he said. "Every Friday night after dinner with her friend. Never had any trouble before. Two different stories. Margaret made it sound like walking alone was unusual and dangerous. Harold made it sound routine and safe. Which was true? Dr. Vasquez checked the police reports. Both Margaret and Harold had given statements in 2008. But their statements from 15 years ago didn't match what they'd just told her. In 2008, Margaret had said she didn't see Jessica that night. In 2008, Harold had said he was home by 9 p.m. and saw nothing. Now they both claimed to have clear memories of Jessica's habits. Why were their stories changing? 3 days into her research, Dr. Vasquez received a note slipped under her motel room door. Stop asking questions about Jessica Manning. Some secrets are meant to stay buried. Leave Millbrook while you still can. No signature. No fingerprints. Just a warning. But Dr. Vasquez had spent 20 years as an investigative journalist. Threats didn't scare her. They motivated her. She started digging harder. Making more calls. Asking more pointed questions. That's when she discovered something the original investigation had missed. Or ignored. Dr. Vasquez filed a Freedom of Information Act request for Jessica's phone records from March 2008. The records showed something impossible. Jessica's phone had been active until 11:47 p.m. on March 14. But every witness said she'd left Tommy's Diner at 10:30 p.m. The walk home took 15 minutes maximum. So why was her phone active for over an hour after she should have been home? And who was she calling? The records showed 3 outgoing calls after 11:30 p.m. 11:32 p.m., 4-minute call to a local number. 11:38 p.m., 2-minute call to the same number. 11:47 p.m., 37-second call to 911. A 911 call that was never reported. A 911 call that didn't appear in any police files. A 911 call that officially never happened. But the phone records proved it did. Dr. Vasquez confronted Chief Walsh, now retired, about the missing 911 call. His reaction told her everything. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, but his hands were shaking. "Those records must be wrong." "Phone records don't lie," Dr. Vasquez replied. "But people do." That night, she received another note, last warning. Leave town or join Jessica. Instead, Dr. Vasquez called the Pennsylvania State Police. Detective Lieutenant Sarah Chin arrived in Millbrook the next morning. She'd handled corruption cases before. Small-town cover-ups where everyone protected everyone else. But she'd never seen anything like this. Dr. Vasquez shared her findings. Changed witness statements. Missing 911 call. Phone records that didn't match the timeline. A town that suddenly had perfect memories of a 15-year-old case. Lieutenant Chin began re-interviewing witnesses. Under official questioning, their stories began falling apart. Margaret Stevens broke first. "I can't do this anymore," she sobbed. "We all promised we'd never tell. But that girl deserves justice." What Margaret revealed shattered everything. Jessica Manning hadn't been murdered by a stranger. She hadn't been kidnapped. She hadn't run away. She'd been killed by someone she trusted. Someone the entire town was protecting. Coach David Miller. The beloved high school football coach. The man who'd led Millbrook to 3 state championships. The pillar of the community. The married father of 2. The real story. March 14, 2008. Jessica left Tommy's Diner at 10:30 p.m. as everyone said. But she didn't walk straight home. She made a detour to the high school. Coach Miller had asked her to meet him there. Said he had something important to discuss about her college recommendation letter. Jessica trusted him. Everyone in town trusted Coach Miller. That trust killed her. Miller had been sexually abusing female students for years. Jessica had discovered proof. Photos. Documents. Evidence that would destroy him. She'd threatened to expose him unless he confessed and resigned. So he arranged to meet her that Friday night. At 11:32 p.m., Jessica called her best friend Carla from inside the school. "Something's wrong," she whispered. "Coach Miller is acting really strange." At 11:38 p.m., she called Carla again. "I'm scared. He's not letting me leave." At 11:47 p.m., Jessica managed to dial 911. "Help me, I'm at Millbrook High School and..." The line went dead. Coach Miller had found her. Officer Danny Walsh, Chief Walsh's nephew, took the 911 call that night. He knew immediately who was at the school. Coach Miller was his son's coach. His neighbor. His friend. Instead of sending backup, Danny went alone. He found Jessica's body in Coach Miller's office. He found Coach Miller in a panic, claiming it was an accident. He found evidence that would send Miller to prison for life. Danny made a choice. He called his uncle, Chief Walsh. Chief Walsh called Mayor Patricia Hoffman. Mayor Hoffman called the 3 town council members. By dawn, they had a plan. They'd cover it up. Coach Miller's story was simple: Jessica never came to the school. He was home with his family all night. The conspiracy was bigger. Chief Walsh buried the 911 call and destroyed the dispatch logs. Officer Danny Walsh falsified his patrol reports. The coroner, Dr. William Hayes, was told Jessica's body was never found. The school janitor was paid to say he never saw anything. Even the phone company records were accidentally deleted. 15 people knew the truth. 15 people swore to take the secret to their graves. 15 people had protected a child killer for 15 years. "You have to understand," Margaret Stevens explained through tears. Coach Miller wasn't just anyone. He was Millbrook football. He brought our town 3 state championships. College scouts came here because of him. The town's economy depended on those football games. The restaurants, the hotels, the shops, we all made money during football season. If Coach Miller went down, the program would collapse. The town would die. So they chose the town over Jessica. They chose money over justice. They chose silence over truth. And they buried Jessica Manning in an unmarked grave outside town, telling the world she'd simply vanished. Once Margaret Stevens talked, the conspiracy crumbled. Coach Miller was arrested at his home, still living in Millbrook, still respected in the community. Chief Walsh was arrested for evidence tampering and obstruction of justice. Officer Danny Walsh faced charges for falsifying police reports. Mayor Hoffman was charged with conspiracy. Dr. Hayes lost his medical license. 15 people were ultimately charged in connection with Jessica's murder and the cover-up. A 15-year conspiracy of silence destroyed by one outsider asking the right questions. In custody, Miller finally admitted the truth. Jessica had discovered he was abusing students. She'd collected evidence. Photos of him with other girls. Copies of inappropriate text messages. She'd confronted him that Friday afternoon. "I'm going to the police Monday morning unless you confess and resign," she told him. Miller panicked. He asked her to meet him at the school that night. Said he needed time to figure out how to tell his family. Jessica believed him. She thought she was giving him a chance to do the right thing. Instead, when she arrived at the school, Miller tried to destroy the evidence she'd gathered. Jessica fought back. Tried to call for help. In his rage and desperation, Miller strangled her. "I didn't mean to kill her," he sobbed to investigators. "I just wanted the photos back. I just wanted her to keep quiet." But Jessica Manning would never keep quiet again. Because 15 years later, a stranger had given her a voice. After the arrests, Miller led police to Jessica's grave. A shallow grave in the woods behind the old Miller farm. No headstone. No marker. No dignity. Jessica Manning was finally brought home. Her parents, now living in Florida, returned to Millbrook for the first time in 15 years. The town that had forgotten Jessica now remembered her everywhere. Coach Miller pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and sexual abuse. He received life in prison. Chief Walsh got 15 years for obstruction of justice. Officer Danny Walsh received 10 years. Mayor Hoffman got 8 years for conspiracy. Of the 15 people charged, only 3 were acquitted. The rest received sentences ranging from probation to 12 years in prison. Millbrook's entire power structure was destroyed. Dr. Elena Vasquez published her book, The Town That Forgot Jessica, in 2024. It became a bestseller. Millbrook today is a different place. The population has dropped to under 2,000. The football program was disbanded. Many businesses closed. The town that chose silence over justice paid the ultimate price. But Jessica Manning finally got justice. Her real killer was behind bars. Her real story was told. Her name was cleared. A statue of Jessica Manning now stands in Millbrook's town square. The inscription reads, "Truth delayed is not truth denied." Justice may be late, but it will not be forgotten. Every year on March 15th, people from across Pennsylvania come to remember Jessica. Not the girl who vanished. The young woman who was murdered by someone she trusted. The victim who was betrayed not just by her killer, but by an entire community. Dr. Vasquez still gets letters from people in small towns across America. Stories of cover-ups. Stories of powerful people protected by silence. Jessica's case taught me something important, Dr. Vasquez says. Sometimes it takes an outsider to see what a community refuses to see. Sometimes the people we trust most are the ones we should trust least. And sometimes, the only way to get justice is to refuse to let sleeping lies rest. They say the truth will always come to light. In Jessica Manning's case, it took 15 years and a complete stranger. But it finally came to light. Coach David Miller thought he could murder a young woman and hide behind his reputation. The town of Millbrook thought they could bury the truth along with Jessica's body. They were both wrong. Because somewhere, there's always someone willing to ask the hard questions. Someone willing to challenge the official story. Someone willing to speak for the dead. In Jessica's case, that someone was Dr. Elena Vasquez. A stranger who cared more about a dead girl's justice than an entire town that had known and loved her. The most shocking crimes aren't always committed by strangers in the dark. Sometimes they're committed by pillars of the community in broad daylight. And sometimes, the real crime isn't the murder. It's the silence that follows. This case remains a stark reminder that in small towns across America, the truth can be buried as easily as a body. But as Jessica Manning's story proves, someone, somewhere, will always be willing to dig it back up. Thanks for watching Echoes of Crime. If you found this story haunting, and you want more unravelings of twisted, true cases, don't forget to like and subscribe. Because some stories stay buried. Until someone finally speaks. And sometimes, the truth is worth waiting 15 years to hear.